Good morning and welcome to First Unitarian Universalist Church of Nashville. My name is Jay Tiefenbrunn, and I'm very pleased to be your Director of Music Ministries. Ooh, I'd like to invite you to join in the singing this celebratory morning with Gathered Here, number 389 in the hymnal if you need it. Hymn number 389, or Sing from Your Hearts. Please rise in body or in spirit as you are so moved and join in the singing. Oh, we'll sing it all together once, and then we'll do a round with this section over here as group 1, this section here as group 2, this section here as group 3, and well, choir, maybe a few of you could go help the other sections. Choir rounding us out as group 4. All together. play on that one. Yeah. Cool. It's a party today.
We light our flaming chalice to illuminate the world we seek. In the search for truth, may we be just. In the search for justice, may we be loving. And in loving, may we find peace.
I'd like to invite you to join your hearts and minds in the spirit of worship. I invite you to this time of time out of time, a time when the ancestors walk with the living, a time where the elderly can become young and the young can pretend they are anything but themselves, a time when the youth cry for the future of the suffering babies, and the babies keep crawling toward that future with wonder. I invite you to this hour when past, present, and future can become one.
Good morning. So, those of you who know me as your Director of Lifespan Religious Education, Marguerite Mills. However, I am using this occasion this morning to come out as the Purple People Eater. And I come with implements, so beware. Okay. Everyone in a costume, will you please come keep me company so that when I knock over the table here, I'm not alone. Come, have a seat right here. Oh. Okay. Will you do that in a few minutes? Okay. All right. Well, come on now. Pull up a piece of floor. We have princesses and Cruellas. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. We have, oh, my goodness. What are you? What are you?
Oh, I'm a skeleton.
Oh, show everyone. Yes.
You gotta be careful.
So why are you a skeleton?
Because you ate me.
With barbecue sauce. Yeah. Any other reason?
Because it's the Day of the Dead, it's Halloween, and the ancestors are coming out, and I'm going to be an ancestor someday. So I figured
Oh. So that's interesting. So you have ancestors, and someday you'll be an ancestor. That's a bit of a journey. Okay, so thank you, Madam Skeleton. Day of the Dead does pratfall so well. So I moved recently, and just 2 days ago, I put up a picture, and the plaque on the bottom of the picture says, Marguerite Donovan, age 1, Mobile, Alabama, 1896.
Oh, wow.
My grandmother for whom I was named, and I carry her with me all the time. It's a wonderful thing, and someday, some of you might remember me. And if you do, all you have to do is remember purple. Just remember purple. It works so well. I'm vegetarian, you know. This is a conflict. This is a crisis of conscience. But I'm going to work it out with my friends. And so I want to ask some of you what you are. What?
I am Hermione when she drank the polyjuice potion. I am Hermione when she drank the polyjuice potion.
Oh.
Okay.
I am a cat. Please.
Police, good. And you, miss, with your little fascinator.
Cactus.
So that doesn't qualify as a people. Does that mean I can eat it? And you, miss, you belong with her, don't you?
I'm a sugar skull.
You two belong together. And this one's not even a people, so she's not scared of me. What are you?
I'm a unicorn.
And every Halloween has to have at least one.
Witch.
And a
Tigger. Spider-Man. Buddy.
bunny. Actually, I think he's a superhero bunny.
I am Tinsy Enchanter from Monty Python and the Search for the Holy Grail.
Please stand up.
I'm a black angel.
A black angel.
Svengoolie.
Can't hear you.
Svengoolie.
Oh.
Are you a tucker?
No. Well, I was planning to be Percy Jackson, but then I couldn't find my pair of jeans. So, I'm Tucker wearing a Camp Half-Blood shirt.
So there. This, I think that this is a cow disguised as a Keats. A cow disguised as a Keats?
Chick-fil-A cow.
Excuse me, Mr. Darth. Yeah, Mr. Darth Vader. Would you breathe for us? Whoa, whoa.
Oh, yes, I'm Mary from the Downtown Public Library. I'm a pirate with my fire.
Butterfly, just a purple butterfly. Am I scared of you? No?
Wizard.
A wizard.
Ninja. Goblin.
Please stand up, Goblin. I want you to notice the various chronological ages here. We are not confined in that regard. It is a good lesson.
I am Superman.
I'm not wearing a costume. I'm a princess.
Who's not in costume?
Ninja.
Cruella de Vil.
Please stand down.
I'm a cowboy.
Dissenting Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
I don't have to come to them. Does that mean that I won't? Really? How do you know that?
I'm a background character.
Tell me who you are.
You're a person with winged eyeliner?
I'm
Tell us what she is.
Oh, she's a character from the manga Assassination Classroom. And what is your name again? Say that into microphone. Rinka Hayami.
What are you?
Ginny Weasley.
She worked hard on that one. You're in a costume, you gotta fess up.
I just don't actually know what to call it. It's Japanese. So I guess if I were an older Japanese woman, I would be dressed in what I'd wear to go shopping with my friends.
You're a person who left us last year for 6 months. For the kimono, so she would be dressed today. Look, it's purple.
Yay! So does this mean you'd have to eat me because I'm a purple princess?
It's a double whammy.
Excuse me. Speak into the microphone. I'm a purple princess.
Yes, ma'am. What's your question? I have an answer. The original purple people eater, which many people here today have reminded me of, had a horn and one eye and wings. I am a descendant of the original. The original is my ancestor. And it has been posited that we don't know if that is an evolution or a devolution. Okay, all right. We're going to parade out of here. And I don't think I missed anyone in a costume. We're going to parade out of here using the blessing on the inside back cover of your gray hymnal. Be afraid. Be very afraid.
Good morning. My name is Hal Potts. I am a member of this congregation and the vice president of the board. It is my pleasure to welcome you here in this sanctuary and those joining us online to worship this morning. In order to reach a wider community than those available physically present on Sunday morning, our services are live streamed on YouTube and Facebook. Joys and concerns are not live streamed or recorded. Before I continue, let me remind you to silence your cell phones. As Unitarian Universalists, our spiritual paths vary, but in this congregation we have made a covenant together. We affirm our interdependence, celebrate our differences, and work for justice. We deepen our relationships as we create a compassionate, welcoming community, nurture spiritual growth, and act on our values in the broader world. I'd like to extend a special welcome to those visiting with us today. We ask that you wear your paper name tags because it helps us recognize you as someone we'd like to meet. If you are seeking a spiritual home, we hope that you may find it here. Whether you are new to Unitarian Universalism or visiting us from another UU congregation, we invite you to stop by the welcome table after the service to have your questions answered. People become members of this congregation by signing the membership book and supporting the church with their time and finances. If you are considering joining the church, please talk to our assistant minister, Denise Gouch. Is Denise here? Talk to Gail Seavey, our big minister. That's right. Following the service, we hope everyone will enjoy coffee and fellowship in the social area, where you will also find information about current opportunities for engagement and reflection. There are a number of announcements in the weekly bulletin, which I hope you will take home and read, and I have a few more. There will not be a Wednesday night dinner this week on October 31st because it is Halloween. This afternoon at 2 p.m., outside of the building that houses the Nashville offices of Senators Alexander and Corker, is the We Won't Be Erased rally for transgender and intersex lives. Please talk to members of the Social Justice Committee for more information at their table in the social hall after the service. This afternoon from 3 to 4:30 at the Watson Grove Baptist Church, which is at 1415 Horton Avenue in the Music Row area, NOAA hopes to have over 1,000 people at the public meeting with Mayor Briley, School Director Sean Joseph, and other city officials to push for more progress on its priorities, including affordable housing, the Community Oversight Board, stopping suspensions and expulsions for minor offenses in grades K through 4. Parking is limited at the church. Carpooling is encouraged. Please be at the church by 2:20 if you are willing to drive or ride in a carpool. Having a big crowd at these meetings really helps NOAA have more success year-round. Also, support the FUUN with your time and finances this coming weekend. Come to the FUUN Fall Annual Auction this Saturday, November 3rd at 5 p.m. Enjoy delectable hors d'oeuvres provided by our FUUN chefs. Be present in others' lives and deepen connections within our community. Add to your social calendar. Bid on a variety of items, dinners, events, and services. A limited number of fixed-priced items will be available. And starting today, drop off your Lucky Duck and or silent auction items in the bridal room, also known as the Susan B. Anthony room. Items may be dropped off at the church office during office hours. The FUUN zone will be open for those 10 and under on auction night. Parents and children are encouraged to donate and bid on items in the silent auction. Volunteer opportunities are still available. And at this time, I would like to give a special welcome to our guest speaker. She is from NOAA, Alexandria Sparks.
Good morning, First UU. Good morning. I was invited here by Carol Koppel and Reverend CV to tell you a little bit about what I do for NOAA. As he said, my name is Alexandria Sparks, and I am the community organizer. So essentially what that means is it's my job to organize and carry out the efforts of the organization. So as you all may or may not know, NOAA stands for Nashville Organized for Action and Hope. And right now we're working on 3 major issues, which are affordable housing, economic equity and jobs, and criminal justice. And I think we can all agree, living in the city of Nashville and the surrounding areas, those are 3 really important issues going on right now. So what kind of led me to this is I've always been a person who's cared about social justice, but I knew I didn't want to be a politician. I knew I had a passion for helping people, but I knew I didn't want to do it from the front. I think there is something to be said about people who are organizing in the background and people who take the time to make things happen. One of the things that also led me to this position was the fact that my rent was going up $400 and I had nowhere to turn, and nobody seemed to think it was a bigger issue than I did. I was like, this is ridiculous. I've been in Nashville for the past 9 years or so, and I can't even afford to live in the city that I came to make a life in. I thought that was absolutely crazy. So before I joined NOAA, I was working with an organization where I was helping 18 to 24-year-olds who've had issues with the criminal justice system find jobs. And I liked it, I felt fulfilled in that, but I wanted to do something on a bigger scale. And so when I saw the community organizing position, I figured that's something that'd be perfect. Never once when I stepped into this role did I think that I was going to meet the people that I've met, so many wonderful people from First UU and all the congregations and organizations around Nashville, and I never thought I would have the opportunity to be an ordinary person in a position to sit in front of people who are decision makers. And I think that's one of the biggest things I've got from being a community organizer. So right now for me, some of the things that I'm working on are in InReach, which is a listening campaign, which gives the opportunity for our congregations to really listen to one another. I think a lot of times congregations just sit and they worship together with the same people Sunday after Sunday, and they don't have the opportunity to really get to know one another the way that the church needs and the way that the community needs. And so my goal in my InReach, or my listening campaign, I should say, is to really build leadership within the church, but also to figure out what the churches want. I've been to some churches where it could be something as simple as they want to change the carpet in the sanctuary, or they want to work with an organization down the street. And so what else I'm working on is a young adult caucus. If you've been to any of our NOAA events, you know that there are a lot of seasoned people. There are a lot of people who have been decision makers and key holders for a long time. And me being a millennial, I think it's time we bring in some young faces, because my generation and the generation below me, they're the people that are going to be the next decision makers. They're the people who are going to be living in the world that we need to be working for today. And so I thank you all for having me today. If you have any questions about NOAA or community organizing or anything else, I'll be here, and I'll also be at the second service as well. So thank you.
And if you go to the big event, the big NOAA event this afternoon, you will see her in the background. Thank you very much, Alexandria. At this time, I'd like to invite everyone to take a deep breath. Bring yourself more fully present to this sacred space, to this gathered community, and to yourself. As you bring yourself more fully present, you may become more aware of those moments from the last weeks or days or hours that you bring here with you, especially those that have struck your spirit to the bone. And if any of you have such a profound joy, sorrow, or concern that you'd like to share with this gathered community, you are invited to do so. Our lay minister this morning, Sandy Wallach, has some stones that you may place in that bowl of water that symbolizes our community. And if you would like us to read of that joy or concern, just fill out one of these slips of paper and hand it to me when you place that stone. Thank you. I ask you to hold these joys, these concerns, this grief and sorrow, as well as all those that lay unspoken in your hearts in the spirit of prayer. I'd like to pray today with a prayer by Carrie Newcomer. I am learning to sit with not knowing, even when my restless mind begins jumping from a worried what's next to a frightened what if, to a hard-edged and impatient why aren't you already there? I'm learning to sit and listen, to pat myself on the knee, lay my hand on my heart, take another deep breath, laugh at myself, befriend my mistakes, especially the ones that showed me how I most needed to change. I'm learning to sit with whatever comes, even though I'm a planner, because so much of this life can't be measured or predicted or evenly proportioned, because wonder and suffering visit when we least expect, and rarely in equal measure. I'm learning to sit with what I might never know, might never learn, might never heal, with what might waltz in and surprise me, might nudge me into the risky business of growing, might crash into my days with unspeakable sorrow, might crash into my days with uncontainable delight. I am learning to sit with not knowing. Blessed be, and amen. This time, our offering will be received. There's instructions if you want to give online or on your phone in the order of service. And this month, we are sharing the plate, which is one half of the loose cash, with Nashville Launchpad, which is a group that is fulfilling a need that is long been needed here in Nashville. They're housing homeless youth from 18 to 24 who are GLBT and Q. And so I want to thank you so much for your ongoing generosity.
Hi, I'm Chelsea Henry, and I love that I am going to die someday. I find it comforting to know that no matter how good or how bad things get, it's all going to end. If we are spiritual beings having a physical experience, then I get to quit this hard, messy work of being physical and go back to wafting around in the ethers or talking out of a crystal or whatever it is that's going to happen after I die. I don't know. Even if I just go back to the earth as worm food, that sounds lovely to me. Current events and politics aside, right now at Samhain or Halloween, death is in the air and it's wonderful. The leaves are finally changing colors. The acorns are letting go, and the spiders are cranking out webs. It feels like a relief to just let go of the bustle of the growing season, cool off, and rest. As we enter the season of deep growing darkness in the natural world, this is the time when the veil between the living and the dead grows thinnest. It is a time to speak with our ancestors and remember our beloved dead. One of the beautiful things about communing with the ancestors is that I don't have to know their names or how they fit in my family history. They know me as one of their blood, and they fill me with a sense of supportive presence. It is through conversations with my elders and my ancestors that I have come to understand life as a journey down a river, through a valley to the sea. We all begin as that drop of rain, and we will all eventually return to the ocean. The paths we take as we flow downhill are varied, but there are common landmarks along the way. When I was 20, I was certain that I was a unique and special something. And I was certain that I was headed down paths that no one had ever gone down before. Does that sound familiar? I see it now as one of the potential landmarks of youth that many, though not all people, may pass through. I also spent many hours with my friends discussing our quarter-life crises. I remember being 25 and just feeling so old. It's funny now, but at the time, I was still looking backward at my coming of age and had not yet turned to look forward at the opportunities of adulthood. And of course, our quarter-life crises were closely followed by our Saturn returns at 28, and then our Jesus year at 33. You can Google these, they're a thing. I'm not making them up. Saturn returns is understood as a time of trial and hardship that helps set your life course. And the Jesus year is a time for inspiration and developing life purpose. I also chose to have kids when I was in my early 30s, and that is a very common landmark as we flow through our lives to the sea. Birthing and raising very small people is incredibly hard. To go back to the river metaphor, the first few years definitely felt like running rapids. And though the river is always different for each of us, I have felt a kinship of parenthood to be like coaches, helping me navigate the sudden challenges. Last year, I suddenly realized that my life revolves around three things: family, work, and church. I was stunned, slightly horrified. I don't think of myself as a conventional person. Remember my belief that I was a unique and special something? And yet, family, work, and church is so frighteningly mainstream. So American flags and apple pie of me. But really, it's not. This church is definitely not that kind of church. Well, maybe the pie, if it were offered with vegan, gluten-free, and sugar-free options. My family and work are also crafted with deliberate care and are pretty outside the box. But the priority of family, work, and church are landmarks, common places that the river of our lives might pass by, and others who have gone ahead of us map the way. Next up for me, as I understand it from my elders, is the rage that comes when a woman turns 40. I'm really looking forward to it. Maybe I'll call it a power surge, or do I have to save that one for menopause? I'm not sure. We are unified in the fact that we were born and we will die. Our paths diverge in the meantime, and yet they echo one another like water smoothing over the same rocks. Some landmarks along the journey are common to most of us. Others are only encountered by a few. Either way, this season is a great time to celebrate those who have gone before us, to create maps of the terrain, and to prepare for those who come after us, who will call upon our wisdom for their journeys. Thank you.
Please rise in body or in spirit and join me in singing our meditation breaths, number 1001 in Singing the Journey, the turquoise hymnal, number 1001, breaths.
Listen more often to things that to be. 'Tis the
For our meditation, I invite you now to reflect a little on the landmarks of your own life, the rocks your life has flowed over like water, just as some flowed over them before you, and still others will come after you. Take a deep breath and let it out with a sigh. Settle into your body and allow the soft animal of yourself to be more comfortable in gravity. Your body has posture. Your body has weight. Take another deep breath and let it out with a sigh. Feel the flow of breath and blood inside you. Feel how universal this flow is. Everyone in the room shares it with you. Take a third deep breath and let it out with a sigh. Allow yourself to be fully present. Soften your gaze and turn your focus inward. Like everyone else here, you were born. Think about that. Imagine your grandmother or your great-grandmother holding you in her arms. Think about her as a baby being held in the arms of her grandmother or great-grandmother. Think about the long lines of grandparents stretching back to the beginning. Like everyone else here, you travel a unique path over familiar terrain. What is one significant moment of your life? Something pivotal that helped make you who you are? Do you have any family members who experienced something similar? Do you know anyone else who passed by a similar landmark? Whether you talked about it with them or not, how did the experiences of others help you understand your own journey? How have your experiences helped others understand their own landmarks and journeys? Like everyone else here, someday you will die. Imagine that you are at the end of your life holding a new baby in your arms. Imagine that baby has now grown old and holds a possible grandchild or great-grandchild in their arms. Feel your connection to the future, to the life that comes after you. When you are ready, I invite you to notice the little owl on our altar up here. This little owl represents the gaze of our ancestors, encouraging us to see them and be seen by them. Our ancestors are welcome here today. Thank you.
Touching God, whatever
So I don't know who you were imagining during that meditation. I was thinking about it, that the oldest people that must have held me when I was a baby were my father's mother's parents, Grandpa Joe and Grandmother Eugenie. So they were great-grandparents, and they must have been in their 80s, so I figured they must have been born around the 1870s. And then I started thinking about, well, if I lived that age and then held, I thought, oh, actually my grandchildren would be at an age where they would have children when I'm that age. So maybe I would hold great-grandchildren someday, or at least in that generation. And that they live that long. That would take us into the 22nd century. And I have to confess, I never really thought about the 22nd century or being connected to it. So I realized that this river, this unity of time, takes me from the 19th century to the 22nd century. And it did, in some ways, what Elsa Boulding, a sociologist, called the 200-year present, which one of you here told me about. And Elsa Boulding she was a professor, she was a sociologist, she was a peace activist, she was Quaker. And right after World War II, about the time that I was born, she was, of course, very concerned, as many people were, with the nuclear bomb and nuclear disarmament. So she was at a big peace conference in Switzerland, and she realized that nobody could imagine there what a peaceful world would look like. So she wanted to find a way for people to think about the future and how it was connected to the past in such a way that was very personal. So she started talking about this very image that we've been talking about here, of really thinking about, in this very personal way, the oldest people in your life to the very youngest at the end of your life. And thinking of that is now. This is your present. So this is that unified river that we all live in. But something kind of strange happened when I was thinking about this, because Boulding wanted us to think about visioning a future. That's not what happened when I started thinking about this. I started thinking about my grandparents. They grew up in New York City when it was kind of a small town. There were no cars. There were no sidewalks. Think about it. There were people just walked in the street, and animals, and there were horses. They were all in the street together. It was rural, like 3 inches outside of the city. The city was small. Most people were farmers, and they knew that. Talk about local food. All food was local. I don't think they could have ever imagined the future that I was born into, a future that they saw. I know they couldn't imagine it, because I know my grandmother was afraid to leave her apartment for the last 30 years of her life. She was so overwhelmed by how the city had grown, how the river had changed, how immigrants and migrants from the South, immigrants from Europe had crowded the city, how the country had gotten impossibly far away. Industrialization had taken over. Now, that was not bad, but it was for them unimaginable. And I started thinking about my grandchildren, not even great-grandchildren, my grandchildren. When I grew up, if you swam in that river, you would have died. Matter of fact, that's what happened to one of my sisters. She swam in the river and died of brain cancer from the pollution. So I can imagine a world that was this industrialized world very clearly, a world in which but I can't imagine the world of my grandchildren. They're growing up in this world that is interconnected in both virtually with the interconnected, the information age, as well as globalized. It's almost like this river has all these currents and confluences coming together, and it seems confusing, right? So I started thinking about what this does for me is become more aware of what I don't know. And how do I live with this river of people of all different generations? And in church, it's a blessed place. Church and family, the only two places I have in my life where there's different generations, where I get to be with them. How do I not know with you? So I started thinking about how we go through these different landmarks in our lives, and yet what's changed is not being 20. There was a 20-year-old here just last week, full of passion and concern for the future with global warming, another limit of science that we're finding out, just like we did with atomic power. And, saying, I have to change my whole life. I have to give my life to this. Nothing else can change. I understood that. I felt the same way about peace and civil rights and feminism when I was his age. And yet, what's changed is the view. The riverbanks are different. They've gone from free-flowing to parts are dredged, parts are filled, parts are dammed off, and it just looks different. The banks are higher in some places and lower in some places. And so, whatever stage of life where we're connected, what our viewpoint is just different. It's totally different. So I thought, what I need at this point, and what I'm inviting you today, is to be good ancestors, is the spiritual practice of not knowing. Not knowing is the scariest thing for most people in the world. They hate not knowing, right? And so there is a spiritual practice to not knowing. That spiritual practice actually is very simple when we're talking about being in this river, this unity of time, across great distances. It's called conversation. But it's a kind of conversation in which, whatever age you're at, that you're coming to it from the place of wonder. I wonder what this viewpoint looks like to you as we flow through this river together. I wonder. And as you're wondering, all of a sudden in this spiritual practice, what you start listening for changes. Usually, don't we listen for, I think this, I believe this, and do you think or believe the same thing I do? And then it becomes oftentimes, how can I get them to think more like I do and get you to think more like me? There are times for that. There are times for debates, head to head. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about heart-to-heart conversation where you start noticing where you're surprised by what they see, where you start noticing what's new. Quite honestly, it could be disturbing. You start noticing what's disturbing. Now, it's not saying you have to give up your viewpoint. You have a viewpoint. That's important. They need to hear your viewpoint too. But it's heart to heart, viewpoint to viewpoint, cross the generations. Because that is the way to find out what our unity really is. Our unity on one level really is that we all want to be seen and respected for what our viewpoint is, what our view of the world is. We all want to develop we need those profound relationships across the generations where we really can see each other in our differences. And yet, that relationship, that unites us, doesn't it? It also is wonder is always the creative solution to not knowing. Because if everybody comes together heart to heart and really shares their viewpoint, we co-create a future together that we can't imagine right now, but can sustain all of us, that we can survive in. So I invite you to find those places of unity, in profound relationships of wonder, as you practice not knowing. And then I think you will all become excellent ancestors someday. May it be so.
I'd like to invite you to rise. Please rise. I'd like to invite you to rise in body or in spirit as you are so moved. And join me in singing our closing song, number 1051, We Are. This song was written with binary language and without Yizé Barnwell's permission to alter the lyrics. I'm loath to do that to her words, but if it is in your heart on pages 2 and 3 to use people and children and siblings and cousins, please do so. Please do so. 1051, We Are.
We are.
Please join me in the chalice extinguishing. The words are located at the bottom of your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
I'd like to close with these words by Anne Hillman. We look with uncertainty beyond the old choices for clear-cut answers to a softer, more permeable aliveness, which is every moment at the brink of death. For something new is being born in us if we but let it. We stand at a new doorway, awaiting that which comes, daring to be human creatures, vulnerable to the beauty of existence, learning to love. The service is over. Let our service begin again, renewed.